Welcome to Urban Knife Guy, where we explore the urban lifestyle and jungle survival. Which of these knives do you think are illegal in Singapore and Malaysia? While you think about that, if you watch this channel regularly but have not subscribed, please do so to help the channel out. Thanks. So the answer to my question at the start of this video is all these knives are legal in both Singapore and Malaysia. What that means is that it is legal to import, buy and own these knives. No permits or licenses are needed. However, it is illegal to carry any of these knives in public without a valid reason. That is right. Technically, it is illegal to carry this knife without a lawful reason. In this video, I will be discussing both Singapore and Malaysia, as the knife laws in both countries are very similar, and I live in both countries, so I have first-hand experiences. However, I want to highlight that nothing that I discuss in this video should be taken as legal advice or any formal recommendation. If you were to ask my opinion of what knife you should EDC in Singapore or Malaysia, my official recommendation is not to carry any knife in public at all. Instead, just sharpen your fingernails with a micro bevel at 17-degree angles. However, if you intend to carry a knife in public despite my official recommendation, you should know the law and regulations concerning knives. Let's first talk about what knives are legal in Singapore and Malaysia. You might be surprised to know that Singapore has got quite liberal laws concerning knives. There's no restriction on locking knives or lengths. So, for example, a flipper knife like that, with a blade about 3.5 inches, that is okay and legal to own. You can have a Spyderco Para 3, obviously something like that, even though it might look like a murder death weapon, it is also legal to own. Same with button locks like that. This is the Civivi Conspirator. Even though it is a large looking knife, it is also legal. And of course, fixed blades like this Bowie knife is also legal. So essentially, for regular fixed blades or folding knives, almost all kinds of knives are allowed. So whether it's a liner lock, a back lock, an axis lock, all these are allowed. There is no restriction on locking blades or the lengths. However, there are a few exceptions in terms of what knives are illegal. Here is some information direct from the Singapore Police Force concerning prohibited, aka illegal knives. Automatic knives which can be released with a button, such as switchblades or out the front knives, are illegal in both Singapore and Malaysia. In Singapore, a gravity knife such as a butterfly knife or balisong is also illegal, but they are legal in Malaysia. Throwing knives are illegal in Singapore, but they are legal in Malaysia. Other than that, there are some restrictions for swords over a certain length, but this video is really talking about EDC knives. While the main restrictions when it comes to folding knives are automatic knives or gravity knives, I should mention that there are two sort of knives that may be a grey area for police officers who are not familiar with knives. One is a spring-assisted knife, such as the Kershaw Also Suite. So it looks like a regular flipper knife, and you actually need to deploy it by engaging the flipper tab. But there is a spring inside which helps to propel the blade forward, so it's easier to deploy. But it is not technically an automatic knife because there's no button that you press to engage or release the knife. You have to manually flip it open still. However, some police officers who are not that well informed may think that this is an automatic knife and consider it an illegal knife. While it is legal, you may be inconvenienced by being dragged to a police station for further investigation. So in my opinion, it is not worth carrying it. Another knife is something that has a lock that can release a blade and can technically open up with gravity. And that's the case of a button lock and an axis lock, such as those on Benchmade's knives. So you could actually disengage the axis lock, and gravity can actually open up the blade, right? Even without flicking it up. Let's see if I can do that. See, it opens up with gravity. So I think a button lock is also the same. It can open up with gravity once you disengage the button. Now, this is technically not classified as a gravity lock, but it can be interpreted as one since the blade can technically open with gravity. Personally, I don't think there'll ever be any issue with a button lock or access lock, but it's something to take note of. From my own experience, I travel between Singapore and Malaysia monthly, and I always have a variety of knives in my check-in luggage. I'm always stopped at Singapore Customs as they scan luggage as they get off the plane and tag it. So when I'm passing through customs, they'll often stop me and have me open my suitcase to check the knives. What they are checking for is to ensure that there are no automatic knives or illegal knives. Once they go through them, I'm always let through with no issues. They are always courteous and professional and never antagonistic. It helps that many of the customs officers already recognize me, and I'm always cooperative and explain how each knife works. When opening the knives, I never open them one-handed. So even if there's a flipper tab, a thumb stud, or the spidey hole, I would never do this in front of a customs officer. I would always open every knife as though it's a two-handed opener, just so that it doesn't seem lethal in any way, or they don't think that it's some kind of an automatic knife. The officers will often ask why I have so many knives, and I just tell them I'm a collector and there's no issue. Everything I've discussed so far is about the legality of buying and owning knives in Singapore and Malaysia. However, if you talk about EDC, or everyday carry, that is a completely different aspect of the law. EDC means you will likely be carrying the knife on your body or in a bag or pouch close to you. The law is very clear. It is illegal to carry a knife in a public place without a lawful reason. So if your EDC knife is on you, but you never leave your house, you do not need any lawful reason to carry the knife. But once you leave your house or property and enter a public space, you must have a lawful reason when carrying the knife, regardless of the style or size of the knife. Let's look at what the police cite as examples of lawful reasons as per SingaporeLegalAdvice.com. So lawful purposes may include using the weapon at work, for religious reasons, which is great because you can say that you are a member of the cult of Spyderco and have to carry a knife, for use in a theatrical production or filmmaking for entertainment, for an ornamental display, for the slaughter or hunting of wild animals authorized under law, or for use in gardening or agricultural use. While the law is clear, the ambiguity comes in the interpretation of what is considered a lawful purpose by a policeman or authority figure who finds a knife on you. One reason that's often recommended in the EDC world, that sounds like an urban legend to me, is to carry an apple. So the rationale is that you are carrying a knife to cut the apple so that you can eat it. I personally think this is a weak reason, especially in Singapore and Malaysia. Maybe it would be better if you carry a durian, since you really do need a sharp knife to open it. But then the problem is that the durian can be perceived as a weapon. Personally, for me, I have several lawful purposes to EDC a knife depending on the circumstance. But one reason that I can always fall back on is that I have a YouTube channel that reviews knife. If needed, I can show my channel and all the videos on my phone. I should mention that there is no normal situation in Singapore or Malaysia where a police officer will stop you and search you for weapons. You would have to be in a very specific situation where the police would think there's a need to search you. In the event you are searched or asked if you have a weapon of any kind, if you are carrying a knife, you must have a lawful reason. If not, you would likely be inconvenienced. I have no idea what will exactly happen to you, but I would expect you might be asked to go to a police station for questioning, and depending on the situation and officer, the knife might be confiscated as well. I have been asked to empty my pockets only once in my life in Singapore. It was late at night and I was under an apartment block in public waiting for a friend. A patrol car pulled up and they were checking me out for loitering. Technically, since I was just hanging around waiting for my friend, I was loitering. I was asked what I was doing under the block of flats, and then they asked me to empty my pockets. In Singapore, most people will comply as we're very obedient to authority. So I took out my car keys, wallet, and a Swiss Army knife. The officer looked them over, said okay, and left. I felt it was a little strange, but nothing happened, so life went on. One point I'd like to highlight is that carrying a knife for self-defense is not a lawful purpose. In fact, it is illegal. Here's a case that is cited by SingaporeLegalAdvice.com. In this case, a 32-year-old man admitted to carrying a 20-centimeter butter knife for self-protection when he went to the home of an acquaintance. I read up about this case, and there was actually an altercation and they're going in for an argument. So this guy brought along a knife because he felt he might need it to protect himself. But that is illegal, and as you can see, he was jailed 3 months for the possession of an offensive weapon. Now, in Singapore and Malaysia's law, all these can be considered offensive weapons, even though we might call them tools. However, even a sharpened metal peg or wooden stake would also be considered an offensive weapon if it is meant to be used as such. So it's all about intent. So even if you carry, say, a sharpened pencil, that can be considered an offensive weapon if you're going to use it to protect yourself and stab someone. So you might be wondering, what constitutes a lawful purpose? I would say apply common sense and ensure the intent is lawful. It is impossible to list every possible reason or scenario, so I suggest using a simple gut test. Come up with a lawful purpose and say it out aloud. If it feels like it's not a strong reason, then it's likely a weak one and will not fly. I should mention that even if you have a genuine lawful reason to carry a knife, individual private establishments like offices, clubs, malls, or schools may have their own rules against carrying knives onto the premises. So even if it is legal in the country to carry the knife, you might not be able to enter certain places with them. While I'm not recommending that you EDC knives in Singapore or Malaysia, if I were to EDC a knife, I would choose a knife that has a blade that is 3 inches or shorter. While there's no law restricting blade lengths, I think it'll be harder to give a credible lawful reason why I need to carry a 5-inch knife around. I personally would never EDC a fixed blade in either country, even if it's a small one like this one. I think a folding knife is generally considered safer, and if you think of public perception, they will think it is safer as well. The best choice of EDC knife is probably a Swiss Army knife or something similar. It is highly recognizable and is considered by the general public as a useful tool. I generally would not carry a 111mm Swiss Army knife. I think that's a bit large as well, but I would go with a 91mm or shorter. I think it's also pretty safe to carry a multi-tool like a Leatherman or something similar. These are also regarded as tools. I personally don't EDC them as they are pretty heavy, unless they are part of a toolkit, but then I will have a specific purpose. In that case, I'll either be going somewhere to repair something or maybe embark on a DIY project, so they'll be part of a kit, and that would definitely be considered a legal purpose. In my opinion, the best way to EDC a knife is to carry it in a holder or an EDC organizer like this. And I've got 2 examples here. So I've got a flashlight, a pen, and a knife. Over here, I've basically the same setup, just a different configuration. But something like this looks more like a fashion accessory or maybe a set of tools that I'm carrying around, so it doesn't feel like I'm carrying the knife for an offensive reason. Same thing with when I have a pouch like this. This has a bigger knife in it, but just the way it's set up, it's obviously some kind of a tool pouch, so it strongly suggests that the knife is not carried as an offensive weapon but as a tool. Now, of course, I do carry a knife in my pocket at times, even without a pouch, but that is because my religion dictates I do so. Well, I hope this has been educational, as that is the only intent of this video. If you are in Singapore or Malaysia and intend to EDC a knife, I highly recommend you read all the laws regarding knives. I've left useful links in the description below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you like the content in general, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.